Hello everybody, and today we have day 5 of our journey into the wondrous past of our human life, and we have made it man-centric in this whole journey because it is our history, it's human beings' history and how we can understand the present world. So when we see the present world, it's a very big world we live in. So we do know it, but we know it implicitly. Now we get used to the whole world. We say, okay, it's like that because it's like that. So like science, we see a lot of science and technology, we see a lot of cultures and countries, but we take it for granted. So if anybody asks, why is it like that? Why is the whole world like this? So we say it's like that. And vaguely, of course, implicitly we know somewhere in history it all developed, somebody developed. That is a vague notion of history. But if you go a little deeper, many new things come into light. And it is a peculiar kind of knowledge which makes you very enlightened in a different way. It makes also very entertaining and thrilling to know the whole past. So we started a very simple journey, and more than thrilling, it's also very natural. You feel like it's like almost like you are becoming aware of your own nature, and you become more aware of your life and your living in the world. So where did we start? We started with the Big Bang, and then the universe started, solar system was formed, it was really formed, and the disk was there, and the sun, these are facts, and the earth was there, it was rotating and revolving, it cooled down, the earth came, the life moved on, and then from lots of species of life came, which we see now. So I'm just connecting the present to the past, and then man came. You and I came, men and women, what we call Homo sapiens. Actually, there are other species of men, human being, a kind of human, Neanderthal and other humans, but they could not survive. Who survived? You and I survived. Who are we? We are Homo sapiens. So that was around 50,000 years back only. 350 crore years back life came, the first life came. And 50,000 years, back we came on earth. 50,000 years back only. And then for a long period, almost 40,000 years, the man was a food gatherer, he had stones, he lived together. Slowly he began learning how to live. We have identified very carefully, those who have missed the videos, please see the videos again. Go back and see the earlier videos also. Slowly man came, small inventions. With every invention, he gained in power. Group living, he understood. Slowly he got used to group living. He used to gaining more invention, more and more comfort. Man needs comfort. Without comfort, you can't be happy. Without a sense of safety, even today, without a sense of safety, we can't be happy. During COVID, we are all very worried. See, it's a state of nature. So we have this concept of being in a state of nature all the time. But what a great achievement was because man has come so far and we are able to live safely. How did that happen? The greatest invention, maybe the greatest revolution for man in terms of settling in one place was agricultural revolution. Domestication of animals, discovery of metals, the Neolithic age where they used stones, then the metals gave them more power, they were able to till land more for a long period. Agriculture revolution also, the agriculture cities, villages lived nicely, happily, comfortably with chiefs and everything. Happily means they were safe. Slowly, along the great river valleys, the biggest wonder, we have already talked in 2 classes about that. It was the last class about ancient civilizations. The biggest wonder happened in certain large river valleys like Huang Ho today, Chinese civilization, Indus, today we are doing that, Mesopotamian and Egyptian we already covered, Tigris, Euphrates, and in the Indus Valley civilization you had Indus, in the Chinese you had Huang Ho, in Mesopotamian civilization you had Tigris, Euphrates. And in Egyptian civilization, you had Nile, the huge, long river of Nile. So these people who are heads, here comes a very interesting thing. The heads started getting power. Power led to organization. Organization led to the next great invention of structuring the whole society. At least they made a start. So a concept of state came in. STATE means not Andhra Pradesh state or your state of mind. State is a political concept in politics, the subject of politics. State means that area which is governed, that area, the state. The whole thing about governance and the physical area is called state. So the country is also called state. So this concept of state, the governance of an area, state, came into existence, and it was the king who was the head. And then we saw the two great civilizations, Egyptian civilization, its peculiar beliefs. Mesopotamian civilization, its peculiar beliefs. But there were a lot of common things in every civilization. What are the common things in every civilization? The same arts and crafts and cities. Cities was called the urban revolution. So villages, before they were only villages, then the cities became centers of trade and commerce. It was in cities that people lived. Cities where all the trade happened, division of labor happened, artisans were there, officials were there, soldiers were there, so many metal works were going on, agriculture was also there. So it was all a whole structured society of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people all over the world. Today we are going to do the two more civilizations, Chinese civilizations. Chinese was along the Huang Ho. Now the interesting thing when you compare with Egyptian civilization is, in Egyptian civilization the Nile was called the gift of the Nile. Egypt was called the gift of the Nile. But Huang Ho was called the sorrow of China. Sorrow, very sad, because Huang Ho was not a stable river. It would change its course, because maybe when it was formed, its geographical nature was such that you wouldn't know where it is moving. So it would flood occasionally. Because of that, they had to think, and they had an elaborate system of agriculture. They had millet and rice as their base, and they had a lot of sophisticated clothing like silk and nylon. They had very, very high level, high class pottery and porcelain. Even now we say China ware, we say, because of China. They had a feudal like system. This is very interesting. Let's pause for a moment and try to understand this feudal system of the Chinese civilization. The king was the main man, but he needed certain key people. Like he had some key people, his key people. They were the noblemen, and they were given lands by right. They were given land by rights. So the nobles were a kind of, it was like, you can say, like a kind of dictatorship at that time. So here we have to understand two concepts. One, at that time, the way I understand it is, at that time, that was the natural development, because anybody would, as I said, would want to have a certain kind of power over people. So there was, unfortunately, a class system. There was a higher class and a lower class. There were certain privileges given to certain sections of people, like the nobles. So this was literally power taken over people. This is, as many critics critics usually is an argument from liberals and leftists. Many critics say that this is the problem with civilization. This is the problem with civilization in a state of nature. So there are two solutions to it. One, you banish civilization. The other is to find out wisdom, add wisdom to civilization, which came later. In fact, we are living in a world where both coexist. So when the history lesson ends, you will understand very strangely that history has not ended, but you will become very, very wise, trust me. Those who are following my videos, I trust me, you will become very wise. Even if you just get the core concepts of history, the way we are trying to understand, very naturally, like a movie, you will become very wise. Somewhere inside you will become very wise. Okay, you'll understand the whole history, and I'll teach you science also and geography also, so you'll understand the whole world. That is my love personally also, and that gives us one kind of a power which I can't communicate in words. That will be the experience at the end of the lessons, which is kind of motivation for all of you to stick on. Okay, and one more thing which will happen is, once you get the facts, you don't need any teacher. You don't need anybody to tell you anything. Well, you know what to know. You know what you don't know, didn't know. Now you know what to know, what you need to know, go further. Like I'm talking about Chinese civilization, you can go, how well you can research. Even if I want to go deeper, I'll see some movies, I'll see how it was. There are so many painters who have painted that whole time. More fascinating details I'll come to know. But through these core concepts, I'll get the road to go into the Chinese civilization. So that was the unfortunate thing. That is the unfortunate thing, even today, that certain sections of people politically want to gain power over people as a privilege, not as giving equal rights to everybody. Now we know we have democracy, we have rights. How it came about is an extraordinarily fascinating stories which are going to come. These are all stories. So the story till here, both the villains and the heroes were the king and noblemen also. If the king was good, you had a good life, but you did not have. All the farmers and all the artisans were lower level. They were slaves also, because when they had wars, they used to have a lot of slaves. Now wars used to happen more than other civilizations in the Chinese civilization, because Huang Ho was culturally. See, you have to understand, we are talking about negative. We always are talking about what they were not. But let us pause for a moment and think that man doesn't become good. He has to become good with wisdom. So, relatively, compared to the surrounding tribes, you can say, Huang Ho, the civilization of Chinese civilization, Shang civilization, and later it was Zhou dynasty, two dynasties. First, Shang civilization came from 765 to 1122, and then 250 to 1122 BC, and 250 BC the Zhou dynasty came. By 250 the Zhou dynasty had come. Now these two dynasties were, relative to other dynasties all around, far more cultured. What does culture mean? Not in modern terms, not in high wisdom terms. Let us look at culture from a state of nature terms. At that time, human beings who had no knowledge and who had not developed, who were still growing and groping, I would say, to find wisdom, how would they be? How would they be? There's a beautiful novel called Lord of the Flies, and in that novel, he dramatizes what happens when you put some human beings in an island. They killed each other. I wouldn't say there's a full truth. I don't know. But in the state of nature, there are a lot of instincts in man when there's no wisdom. Man, I'm not saying that man is not naturally good. Man is naturally good. But that natural goodness has to also get knowledge and consciousness and self-consciousness for him to become like how we are today. We don't go and kill anybody. That is culture. Now that we have understood culture, Shang and Zhou dynasty relative to the other surrounding areas were more cultured. So obviously there was always a threat of attack, which is another reason why they had to have these nobles and armies and everything. So there's a practical necessity for these things. Okay, so that time, 2,500 years back, the 250 BC, sorry, 1,000 and now 3,000 years back, that was the civilization. So wars were there. Feudal like it was there, and bronze implements were used heavily. Metallurgy was very advanced in the Chinese civilization. Chinese civilization was very advanced, and one very interesting thing about the Chinese script is it was ideographic. There was an idea, and strangely that script has remained pictographic and ideographic. It was, and one more very interesting thing is like Egyptians, Chinese civilization, like Egyptian civilizations, revered in a almost similar way people who died. So they also have built beautiful tombs for the people who are dead, and they had a very peculiar belief that a person after he dies becomes a powerful person. You know, again we come to beliefs. At that time those were the beliefs. If you notice, see, if you go to any region even today, there will be peculiar beliefs of that region. They'll believe, really believe, you know. And you, if you are coming from another country, you'll say, what is this belief? And this is so silly. That is a deep conditioning which happens. If you grow up in a culture which believes, let's say, a tree is a god, and you have not come from that culture, so you will say, what is this silly belief? So these beliefs are old beliefs. So the beliefs you are seeing today are not today. They came. It's a simple point I'm making. They came then. So in China, they believed that when people died, they became powerful, and hence they must be seen as gods, hence they must be given respect. And there it was similar to Egyptian civilization, not such huge pyramids, but they used to build beautiful tombs for the dead. One more interesting thing is that they had many other gods also. They had, like all ancient civilizations. Why did all ancient civilizations have gods like sun god, wind god and all? Because they were dependent on agriculture. So now we are so conditioned, we say, okay, there is a god, but the concept of God originated for two reasons. One, because they were dependent on these forces of nature. The other reason is they can't make sense of the world. There is always that fear and mystery about the whole universe. We seem to need, somebody said, if there is no God, people will invent a God. That's a fact. So we need a God to feel secure. Okay, there's a God, he'll take care of me. And they did have such a God. He was called, in China, the ruler above. They believed there's a ruler above God. And even now, that is why, because this concept of God is in our bones, you can say, almost in our cultural DNA, let's say, that it is very difficult for us to accept atheism. Very difficult to accept that this is the only world. So if we are aware of the history, it becomes more easy to unlearn and be more comfortable with atheism and theism, and come out with your own perception, your own understanding of the world. the ruler above. And we also had one more, one more very interesting political fact, not only connected to God, is that the king always has a priest beside him. So the power is not only political. See, the power politically is on your body, let's say, and the power on your mind is of the priest. I'm just putting it in a symbolic way. The priest was very prestigious in Chinese civilization. Not only in Chinese civilization, in Indian civilization also. The Brahmins were very prestigious. They were supposed to have some kind of a knowledge which nobody has. They were higher classes, see, in India also. We'll come to Indian civilization in the next class. So, priest had a very, and what was the priest's power? If anybody comes to him, he would take a bone which had holes in it and he would crack. He would put a fire in and he'll crack. By the cracks, he would tell you your future. I mean, any modern person will say, this is silly. It is not silly. At that time, they did not know anything. We are talking about a civilization so long back. They did not know this whole world, science, all this, they did not know. But the interesting thing is, even today we believe all that. So where is the science? Which means, fundamentally, we are all conditioned, we are all frightened, we are all find this world enigmatic. How many people can really tell where we came from and where we go after? Nobody in the world knows. What is this existence? It will always remain a mystery. As some people said, there is no code to crack. You can't crack the code of life. There is a modern scientific temper. So that is no relief, or that is no solace. That is a fact, I'm saying. If you read history, that time also, they had to have a priest who will predict your future. Whether you like it or not, people believed that kind of a thing. And they were so prestigious. The priest was so prestigious. High prestige he had. He could really tell you the future, and as you said, they were called oracles. So that is the kind of picture. I'm sure you got a kind of sketch of the Chinese civilization. Very fascinating civilization. You can go and see other YouTube videos and see how more details about the Chinese. You can see the pottery, you can see the beliefs, you can actually see the places. They have recreated in videos. They have many paintings done. Please go through all the videos later in life. Now we come to the Indus Valley, the last civilization which we are going to cover. There were other civilizations also, but we are going to cover only 4 civilizations to give you the whole picture of the world history. So in Indus Valley civilization, it was an urban civilization. Indus Valley civilization was an urban civilization. It is considered one of the most fascinating civilizations because it was highly developed and very little is known about them. So obviously we can indirectly predict, though it was that old, the way I understand it is, though it was that old, they were highly cultured, highly intelligent, almost like brilliant. You know, Indus Valley civilization was a brilliant civilization. They had a drainage system, they had a great bath, there was no king. There were a few group of people who used to rule that place, you know, and it was very, very urban, beautiful roads. So you can go through the details of the Indus. Why I am not giving more details? Because more details are not known. In fact, it was discovered. People thought the Indian history started from Aryans. They discovered suddenly, it was a sensational discovery, much before Aryans, much before the Vedic civilization, was the Indus Valley civilization, which vanished. Why did it vanish? Some people say it vanished because of flooding. Some people say it vanished because Aryans had come. So there are many theories about that. No king. And in 1500 BC, now it's 2020. So 3500 years back, the Indus Valley civilization also ended. All these civilizations actually ended because of outside forces conquering them. We have seen how in every civilization. But they lasted for a long, thousands of years. Like if you see from 2020, each of these civilizations lasted for around 2000 years. So that's quite a long time. It's quite stable, if you think about it. That completes that wonderful entrance of civilization into our journey of how man has come so far, which means history. Now let's just summarize in terms of a heading called impact. So what did these 4 civilizations do? It brought in cities, it brought in the concept of state. It started small, it became big. They had a head king and armies, and they had power and classes. So the power concept, unfortunately, for a long time, till recently, that king and the power and the central authority, that is also conditioned into us. Some group of people are going to control us. some dictator. Now we have half government, half dictatorship and half freedom. Of course, relative to that period, we are far more free. We can earn and we can, but again, the future we don't know. Again, wars might come. We'll come to that. So this concept, spiritually, there was somebody dominating the people, not just king. We have also seen there was also belief system. They were mainly religions. The belief systems and religions were overcoming and conquering people's minds. This also is a fact. Classes came. There was an upper class, there was a lower class. And the law codes had come, which according to me is a very great development of ancient civilization. Because see, we have come from early man, almost like a beast. A beast has become cultured because of law. Law is a very cultured thing. You become, when law, everybody see, like we follow, all of us follow law. We don't break law. We are afraid of law. Not afraid of government. We are afraid and cultured enough not to break the law. Why should we break the law? It's like a why not live in peace? Nobody, no common man wants war. That is culture. But what I'm trying to say is that culture which has come naturally to us, which we take for granted, came as a long development, and this is the turning point when the law codes came. But the law codes also had separation of higher class, low class. But if you see positively, see, we have to see both sides. If we see only negative, like I personally feel that many ideologies, even I would say leftism or rightism or any right-wing philosophy, any ideology comes from over focus on one aspect. No, don't do that. Look at all the facts and you come up with your own ideology. So there was positively a great culture which did come, absolutely surely it came. Thousands and hundreds and thousands of people led peaceful lives, and even now we are living peaceful lives. We can't say only that history is wars. We cannot say that. We have to say both that it is peaceful and war. Even if you see an individual, you will not see, I feel that even today our individual personality also is not fully ideal. It's half ideal, half practical. It's a mix. We all can understand this concept. So law codes came. Rulers, priests, officials were the higher class. Farmers, artisans, lower class. Slaves are also there. So this is one aspect. Then there's a great aspect. Another great aspect is there. And I have not covered a lot of concepts. Like there was mathematics, there's a lot of observations. I'm going to cover later, in a later class. When I cover the later history, I'll come back to this. There was development of knowledge. For now, you accept there was development of knowledge also. Trade also. Spread of knowledge also. So what's happening in the world now? Knowledge is coming. How does knowledge come? Knowledge does not come by somebody telling you. That is religion. That is priesthood. Knowledge doesn't come like that. Knowledge is science. Knowledge is observation. Knowledge is really knowing. Man is a knowing animal. So, huge knowledge. The zodiac signs, I'll give you some number system, calendar, zodiac signs, astronomy, human body, because there was embalming of the dead bodies, human body, metallurgy, all they could do from their eyes and lack of instruments and lack of, let's say, discovery of their power of thinking, all they could observe, they observed, and they all coded it. Now, one more beautiful thing is writing. Why is writing important? Not just because they can communicate, write records. No. If you have writing, it can be transmitted to the next generation. It can be transmitted to other generations in the same time. Writing is not a joke. Writing has turned history. So every invention of metals, invention of structure of government, invention of religion in the positive aspects, even in the negative aspects. I'm talking about impact, both positive and negative. Religion and gods and beliefs, agriculture, and every single invention changes. Like Google has changed the world today. I feel Google has changed the world today. Tomorrow we don't know. So much of information. How will it spread? We don't know. So every invention has its power. Every invention has its implication and its impact. I think we have covered, I feel personally, I'm very happy that we have covered it quite well. I'm not saying I know everything. Nobody can know everything. I am not here to tell you that I'm a historian, I'm an expert. Not at all, not at all. The little love I have for the holistic understanding of knowledge, I'm giving you not because I know anything, definitely not, but because anybody can know anything if he knows what he knows and if he knows what he doesn't know. We don't know. We should know. Okay. Thank you so much, and we'll meet tomorrow with another drama and the story unfolding in the journey of man. Thank you. So we'll stop here, and I think if there are any questions, I'll ask Arvind. Any questions? They can ask later also. So nobody asking any questions. Is it so clear? Okay. Thank you.